Hello everyone, Mark here. Welcome back to another video in Microsoft Flight Simulator, excuse me. We got a full flight video for you today. Another one here in the Horizon Simulations A321, which is a mod for the Latinvfr A321neo. So we flew that one last time over in Europe from Liverpool down to Salzburg. And I'm really enjoying it, so we're in it again today, here with a different route. So we're on the ground at JFK in New York, and as you can see, we're on board this very pretty Azores Airlines livery on the A321. So we're going to take this airplane over to the Azores, or Ponta Delgada to be exact, which is the capital over there. Pretty interesting route that's operating. This a real world route on the A321neo. For those of you who don't know, the Azores is part of Portugal, but it's a group of islands out in the Atlantic Ocean. From kind of the east coast of the US, about 2/3 of the way across the Atlantic over towards Africa. So pretty interesting place, interesting airline, interesting route. So I thought it'd be a fun one to do in this airplane. So we're gonna get that going. As you can see, GSX is working on the catering. We'll get boarding going shortly. And then we'll jump into the flight deck here and get the flight plan all loaded in. That's already been completed via a sim brief. Sceneries, obviously the JFK scenery here is iniBuilds, and then the Ponta Delgada scenery is by MK Studios. There is actually an iniBuilds version of that airport as well, but I tend to have a problem with iniBuilds sceneries in terms of performance, especially when landing. It seems like just about every time I land at an iniBuilds airport, at least other than LA for some reason, it seems to just get really laggy. It basically turns into a slideshow, like less than 10 FPS when I land. So there's another scenery available. It looked pretty nice as well, so I opted for that one instead of iniBuilds. So MK Studios there, iniBuilds here in New York. Yeah, catering just completed. So let's go ahead and get started with the boarding process, or request boarding from GSX, and it'll do its thing. Let's go and jump back into the flight deck here. I've done just some basic cockpit prep here. Emergency crew supply is on. ADIRs have been set to nav. We have our logo light on. Emergency lights have been armed, and batteries and ground power turned on. And then fueling is in process currently, that we can see there, and irises are about to align, so we're looking good there. We'll come down to the MCDU here. We'll go ASUS AOC menu, go to the init page, and we'll do an init data request, pull the sim brief information. There we go. And we'll do a weather request here for JFK, so we have that available. I know we can get on the EFB as well, but I kind of like using... Did I type that wrong? Where's JFK? There we go. I kind of like using this function on the fly-by-wire cockpit because it's available, and it's sorry to set that. It's pretty interesting. So I will grab this and print that out. While that's printing, let's see, we're going to go to, nope, I don't want to do that, menu, FMGC, and we'll get going with the rest of everything. But if I can turn my mouse the correct direction, will let me do it. Grab the printed weather information. We'll take a quick peek at that. As you can see, winds out of the north at 10 knots, 10 miles visibility, few clouds at 1300 scattered, 2700 overcast, 4600. Pretty relatively mild temperatures, and there's the altimeter setting, so nothing really too concerning in terms of weather here. In terms of time, It's currently a little after 11 p.m. in New York here, so that should get us over to Ponta Delgada at around, I believe, 8:30 to 9 in the morning. So we're going to have that test sunrise somewhere over the Atlantic, which should be quite a nice view for us. But that's fine. All right. IRSs are aligned. We just saw that GPS primary pop up. Nav data here is accurate, so that's good. So we can come to the init page and we'll pull our init request here. JFK to Ponta Delgada. We've got our Azores Airlines 246, our flight number, cost index, and cruise altitude is 350. Did we plan steps today? I could look at this in the EFB, but no steps today. So at 350 the whole time, so that's fine. I'm gonna actually, while we're here, I'm gonna go ahead and request our climb, winds, cruise, and we'll go ahead and just request the forecasted descent winds, even though that's a while from now. Perfect. Alright, cool. We'll head over to the flight plan page now. We are doing a SID. If we pop over here actually real quick to Navigraph, departing runway 4 left on the JFK 5 SID, which if we look at that chart real quick, off of 4 left is a right turn heading 099, and then if we look at our routing with our transition being BET or Betty, however you say that, so we're expecting vectors to the 109 radial from the JFK VOR. So that's how we're going to depart, top altitude of 5,000 feet. So we'll load that in. Departure 4 left, JFK 5. Perfect, that looks good. And we'll go ahead and insert. And perfect, heading 099 to BET, so that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and clear out that discontinuity, even though technically, oh, it won't let me do it. No, that's fine, we can go direct to, I guess since it's technically vectors. So we'll direct ourselves to BET after departure there. We're going to go ahead and load in our planned arrival. According to the TAF for Ponta Delgada, it looks like the winds are going to be pretty consistently out of the east, so we're not expecting that to change. However, for our approach, it's going to be the RNAV Yankee, and our SID, or excuse me, our star is the Somel to November, which is that one right there. And our approach via is SM700. How you kind of determine that, most of the time, sometimes you won't always have one. Sometimes the stars feed directly into the approach. So for example, in Navigraph here, this green is our star, the Somel to November. You can see this star terminates at SM700, and the approach also picks up at SM700. So if it feeds in like that, you want to select your approach via, so it's a nice smooth transition. No transition there. Okay, cool. Let's insert that. And then what we'll go ahead and do, we'll head up here, go to the plan page, and then we'll step through the legs of the flight plan. So there's the, go back here, so there's the 090 or 099 heading. From there we're going to direct ourselves to BET, and then we're just checking to make sure we don't have any discontinuities on our flight plan all the way down there, which we do not, so that looks good. So we can undirect that, or not undirect it. Let me get that off plan mode. Cool. So flight plan is more or less loaded in for now. We're waiting still for that airplane to finish. Actually, it looks like we are finished refueling. We've got 1,500, or excuse me, 15,500 kilograms of fuel on board. So given that is the case, we can head over here, go to the initb page. We can load in our planned 0 fuel weight there, and then our block fuel of 15.5. We'll throw that in there, and we'll let it do its thing. Perfect. Trip time looks like around 5 hours 22 minutes is our expected trip time today. So looking good. Alrighty. Pop back outside here. Looks like GSX is finishing up on the baggage loading, and we don't have too many more passengers to get on board, so we'll be out of here relatively quickly. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is fire up our APU. We'll hit the master switch and the start switch. We'll get that going. And then I'm going to leave GSX to finish doing its thing, and then I'll be back with you shortly when we're ready to push back. Alright, so boarding has been completed, and we've got our final weight and balance numbers, so we can go ahead and do our performance calculations as well here. I do not have, or haven't been able to find any sort of accurate performance calculator for this airplane, so I just kind of do toga the whole time and kind of wing it, and it generally works out fine. So we're not going to set a flex temp, we're just going to toga it today. That's more fun anyways, right? We're going to do flaps 1, excuse me, and then we'll load in our takeoff speeds 156, 157, and 161 for our speeds there. Cool, so that looks good, and performance is complete. Our performance calculations are complete. The only other thing I need to do is verify our cruise speed here on the flight plan. Once it's at Mach 7.9, that's the other thing this airplane won't. It won't set it from SimBrief, so we're going to set it to Mach 7.9, pre-selected there, so it'll use that once we're up in the cruise. Perfect. Alright, let's finish getting everything else set up here as we get ready to push back. APU should be running actually, so let's throw the bleed on. We can pressurize our fuel pumps because we are now fueled. Fasten seat belt, and portable electronic switches can come on, and we can disconnect the ground power at this time as well. I'll wait to flip that beacon on until we are fully ready for pushback. I will come to the MCP here, make sure we have our QNHs both set, those look good. We'll flip on our VORs on both sides here, as well as constraints on both sides. Don't really need it, but I'll throw, actually, yeah, I'll throw terrain up on this side as well. This should all be managed. That looks good. Our initial climb altitude is 5,000, so we'll set that, and pretty much everything else is set and ready to go. So we'll talk to GSX here, request our pushback and departure. And my sim's glitching out here. Pause for just 1 second. Gonna have to go turn frame generation off and back on. Sometimes causes little glitches like that. So that'll smooth it back out. And then we'll turn frame gen back on, and that should solve the problem. Cool. There we go. Now that we are preparing for pushback and departure, we'll go ahead and flip that beacon on stroke and come to auto as well at this point. We are ready for pushback. Sweet. All loaded up and ready to go. I've been working on our checklist here. We'll get going with our before start checklist. Takeoff speeds and thrust are set. The windows are closed. The beacon is on. Park and brake to go when we push back. I'm going to go ahead and check that now. No reason to hold on to that. And then everything's set prior to start. We'll go ahead and take our dome light off off as well at this point if I can find the switch. Apparently I am completely blind. Hello? I know where it's at. I'm just quite blind right now, and I literally cannot find it. There it is. Oops, that's bright. Too off. There we go. Turn that up and up just a little bit. Alright. Facing southwest. Ramp exit north. Is that what we want to do here? Ramp exit. Oh, it probably means ramp exit on November. Probably so. That looks like the only preset option on this GSX profile, which is from iniBuilds, so we'll go with that option. Alright, we are set and ready to go. We'll go ahead and release those parking brakes. And we'll get ready to start our engines. Fuel pumps are on, APU bleed is on. Awesome. Alright, starter mode switch. And we'll go ahead and start engine number 2. We got N1 rising there as well as N2. Alright, looks like we've got a good start there on engine number 2. There's available, so we'll go ahead and start number 1. Oops, my throttle was accidentally all the way up there. Alright. We got N1 on engine 1 as well as N2. EGT rising slowly. This is actually the first time I've used, here comes the fuel flow, first time I've used the pole pushback. That's pretty new on GSX. Seems to be working well enough. Alright, good start on both engines. We can go back to normal. Over on this side, predictive wind shear can come to the on position. And I will wait for the rest of that until pushback's fully completed here. Forgot to start the clock actually on pushback, so I'll go ahead and do that now. A little bit late. Go ahead and get rid of that APU though, don't need that anymore. is parking brake, if I can find it in the dark. Set. Make sure I have Simlink running. Cool. So once we're complete with our checklist here, departing 4 left, so we're going to exit out November here. We'll follow Alpha to Kilo here. We'll cross our runway 31 left on Kilo and take full length Kilo 1 4 left. Cool. Alright. Tow truck's disconnected. We'll go ahead and arm the speed brake. Set flap 1. Looks like I accidentally set that to 2. There we go. Flaps 1 is set. Auto brake we will set to max. Make sure everyone's out of our way, which they are. And we can go on with the turnoffs and the nose taxi lights as well. We'll come down here for our after start checklist. Anti-ice is off and not needed right now. Cam status we'll check. Pitch trim, we didn't have a setting for it, so we'll leave it as is. Rotor trim is neutral. We'll head to the cam status page, and it's normal. Cool. Taxi checklist is next. We'll do our flight control checks. So we'll flip it over to the flight control page. Start the ailerons, full left, full right, and neutral. Elevators, full up, full down, and neutral. Rudder, full left, full right, and neutral. Flight controls are checked. Flap setting is confirmed to flaps 1. Radar and predictive wind shear is on. Engine mode selector is normal. ECAM no. We've got no blue there. Or we will, I should say. We'll test our takeoff config, which is normal. And then we'll ding the cabin on the way once we're a little closer to takeoff. Well, looks like all our checklists are good. We'll go ahead and kick off the parking brake. Get a taxi from the left seat. And just to verify, we're going to be straight here out on November, and then we have Alpha out to our left here, so we're going to turn left on Alpha. Alright, here comes Kilo 1. I will try to keep it rolling. We are going to turn the packs off here for departure. We go ahead and flick those off right now. Approach path looks clear. As we pull on here, your tracks come out, nose light goes to takeoff, strobe light comes on. Actually, I'm going to come to a quick stop here. Need to get our transponder set as well, so we'll line it up. Come to a quick stop, and I'm gonna head over here for the takeoff. And our transponder is TARA. Cool. Alright, we are ready to go. Runway 4 left is verified. It's at 50%. Stabilized. And Mantoga SRS runway, auto thrust blue. Should have a little forward pressure there on the stick. Airspeed's alive. There's 100 knots, neutralizing the stick. V1 rotate, and there's someone crossing the runway right in front of us, of course. Positive rate of climb, gear up, pitching for that flight director. That turn heading 099. There's climb thrust. Fix that TCAS in just a second. We'll head to the overhead. We'll get pack 1 back on. We got nav. And there's acceleration. Start lowering that nose as we go into the cloud layer here out of JFK. Get things cleaned up a little bit. We can get rid of the speed brake. We'll turn the turn-offs and the nose lights off. There's S speed, so we can go flaps up. And we can go ahead and take a direct to that. There's speed, open climb, nav. We'll go ahead and get ourselves cleared. Since we've got no air traffic control, we'll go ahead and take it back up to flight level 350. Pull that out, thrust climb, open climb, and nav. I should be following that flight director a little bit better here. Transponder situation here. Oh, that's what it was. I flipped that to auto. Alright, there we go. That's fixed. Runway direct to Bet. Coming through 6,500. We've got open climb set to 350. There's not too many great views of the city with this cloud cover. Looks like total air temperature is getting within icing range here, so we'll turn our wing and engine anti-ices on at this point, since we're in cloud layer. Looks like we may have just broken out of it, but we'll leave it on until we're sure. And I also forgot the chrono, of course, forgetting all our all our stuff today. There's 10,000. Airplane's going to accelerate up to our final climb speed around 290 knots until we switch over to Mach, a little higher up. Don't need that terrain anymore. I'm going to flip that off. Alright, now we're just going to monitor the airplane. Once we get up to 18,000 feet, we'll switch to standard. In fact, I may just go ahead and do it now since we're already cleared through there. We'll go ahead and pull standard now. No reason to hold off on that at this point. So we'll let the airplane get up to cruise. Fortunately, not a whole lot to look at on departure here. Getting above the clouds now, it looks like it actually can see the stars above us, so we can go ahead and do with our engine anti-ice and wing anti-ice, and since we're above 10,000, we can get those lights off as well. Should turn that back on. There comes our pack 2 back on. So everything's pretty much set now for the airplane. We'll just let it climb, let it do its thing. And I will be back with you guys shortly before we start a descent. We'll talk through our arrival procedure, make sure everything is still looking good there. And for now, I'll leave you with a few images of a hopefully beautiful sunrise over the Atlantic. So, see you back here in just a minute. Well, good morning everyone. Welcome back. We are cruising here, still at 35,000 feet. We've been airborne for just a little over 4 hours. I started the timer a little bit late, so probably about 4 hours, 10 minutes at this point. And we're just starting to come in contact, you can see out there on the horizon, just below that beautiful sunrise with some of the islands of the Azores. So we are, as you can see by the navigation display, we're about 100 miles from top of descent here. So we're just going to take a look at the weather, do our final double checks, make sure everything is loaded in for our arrival. So I have already loaded in our weather, or requested our weather, for Ponta Delgada. So we can see pretty nice weather, just winds 10 knots out of the east there. A little bit variable, but shouldn't be an issue for us landing runway 12. Unrestricted visibility, just a layer of a few clouds at 2,000 feet, and a pretty mild 16 degrees centigrade. So looking beautiful there, shouldn't cause us any issues on the landing. It is an RNAV. We'll plan to just use the flight path angle function like we did into Salzburg, but a little bit simpler approach, and it's kind of straight in, so as soon as we have the runway in sight, we'll probably go ahead and take it manually from that point. However, in terms of our arrival, all that's staying the same, and the approach, we'll go ahead and pull up the chart in Navigraph, just to have a quick peek. So it's the RNP Yankee beginning here at the initial approach fix of 0 Mike 700. We're going to be at 4,500 feet there, and then I believe like 2,400 feet at this fix, and then intercepting that 3-degree glide path angle at 2,200 feet right here down to the runway, giving us a precision altitude of 560 feet. So pretty simple. We're going to go ahead and put in our destination data here. So QNH is 1028. So we'll load that in. Our temperature is 16 degrees. Wind is 090 degrees at 10 knots. Transition altitude is 7,000. We're going to do flaps full configuration today. Our baro altitude, I kind of forgot just to verify, 560 feet for our minimums. So that's all loaded in. I went ahead and double checked the flight plan as well. It's just straight inbound, no discontinuities or anything leading to the runway. So it should be hopefully a pretty uneventful arrival now that we have everything loaded in. So I'm going to be back with you guys once we're kind of in the descent and getting a little bit closer to setting up for the approach. We've got just a little less than 240 miles to run at this point, so I'll catch up with you guys during the descent. Hello guys, welcome back. We're well into our descent down into Ponta Delgada at this point. We're just descending through flight level 150 as you can see there. So far the airplane's holding on to the VNAV descent profile quite well, so that bodes well for us from this point on. We'll start to slow it down pretty quickly here once we get close to 10,000 feet. Fast seatbelt sign is on for the descent and for the remainder of the flight in just a moment. When we get close to 10,000 feet, we'll get the landing lights on and the portable electronic switches on, and then continue on for the approach. So the way I've kind of had it set up here, if we run over to Navigraph real quick, our actual arrival, our transition point from our star to our approach is going to be this one right here. And see we have a restriction with a line beneath it, which means we have to be above 4,500 at this point, or I should say at or above. Can't be below 4,500. And if we look at our approach chart here, you can see it recommends 4,500 here. It's not per se a hard restriction, but since the approach recommends that, we're going to be at 4,500 at this point, and what that will also do is give us ample time to slow the airplane down and configure it for landing. We have 17.5 miles then to descend from 4,500 down to 2,200, which is actually here, so probably almost 20 miles to do that. So that'll give us time to slow the airplane down, because we're going to be using kind of the flight path angle function here, and if you remember from last time we used that into Salzburg, very crucial of the airplane fully configured for landing before you activate flight path angle mode, or else it won't do a good job of holding that flight path angle if you change the configuration and the speed of the airplane at that point. So I don't think we're going to have any problem getting the airplane slowed down, but we'll surely manage it and use speed brakes as necessary. And actually, probably what I should have done, this might mess things up. I probably should have 163. I probably should have, let me verify our landing speed. We should have landing speed in there. I don't think this is probably going to make a big difference on the VNAV, but let's do 37 there. Yeah, it's still showing we're beneath the profile, so I don't think we're gonna have too big of an issue. Plus, as you can see, it's a beautiful day. It's pretty much clear, just a few clouds are reported in the area, so if everything goes to plan, we'll be taking it manually pretty early on for the landing, at least I hope to do that. Here comes our commanded slowdown, 10,000 feet down to 250. We'll see if it handles this well, or if we may need to toss up the speed brakes. Usually it's handled it decently well from this point on, or excuse me, from this point forward or whatever, in the past, I guess is what I'm trying to say. When I've flown this airplane, it's done a pretty good job at it. Meanwhile, as we come through 10,000, we'll go on through the portable electronic switch to the on position, and we'll get the retractable landing lights on as well. You can see we still held that profile, so Fly-by-Wire's VNav has done a good job at building in that kind of little section where the airplane basically levels off in order to slow down without losing the profile. So that looks pretty good. So far we're down to 250. But this is that initial approach fix coming up here. So at that point, we'll probably take it into selected speed and start slowing things down and gradually getting flaps out and all that. Since this is a straight-in approach, do have to make sure we're still on top of getting the airplane configured and all that. I've opted for low auto brake setting as well. If we take another look over at the charts here, landing runway 12. This apron is where the terminal is here, so you can see there's no real exits that would be that useful for us to make. It's not that long of a runway, but it's going to be plenty long for us, and this airplane stops pretty quickly. Looks like there's a bit of a turnaround here. Having never flown here, I don't know if that's really big enough to be usable for an A321 or not, but I figured we can just plan to take it all the way to the end, so there's no need to get stopped crazy early. So we'll do idle reverse, and low auto brake should be just fine for us today. All right. Looks to me like we're gonna maybe be a touch early on flight time. We did have a tailwind majority of the routes. At times it was kind of a direct crosswind, but most of the time it was a tailwind in the 50 to 100 knots, which I believe is a little above what the forecast was indicating, which probably helped us pick up some extra time. Bring this on our cams up a little bit. What I'm actually going to do now, since we're getting pretty close, and there's actually 7,000 feet, so let's do that, and it's 106, but let's verify it here. Update, or yeah, 1028. So let's set that. It's actually going to increase our indicated altitude, make us a little bit higher, but it should handle that just fine. I was going to do something else. Oh, I was going to say, let's go ahead and pull the speed. Let's set it to the green dot. And since we're in manage speed, what we'll go ahead and do is activate the approach phase, just so that's done. And we'll get the airplane slowed down. Coming up on the initial approach fix as well. do our approach checklist actually right now as well. So bear reference is set, seatbelts are on, minimums are set, auto brake set, engine mode selectors are normal. So just landing checklist, i.e. our ECAM memo to go. And that is it. Coming up on 4,500, we're just a tad high as we pass the fix here. We can go ahead and go down to 2,200, which we'll plan to intercept the glide path there. Like I said, if we already have the runway in sight and we're pretty stable, we may take it manually right from that point anyways. But we'll have everything all set up. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull the speed back a little bit more, back to around 220. Just gradually start slowing it down. May have been a bit overzealous with that slowdown, but that's fine. We'll just leave it there. We've got this long extended period where it looks like our descent path angle is pretty shallow. Probably could have waited a hair on that, but that's all right. If we do have to go missed, which I don't intend that we will, given there's no air traffic control, in reality I might opt to just kind of do a visual pattern type of situation, but the actual missed approach procedure is here. Climb to 3,000 to PTUD out here, following this track. Join the holding there and start a new approach, or start a new approach as directed. So yeah, no air traffic control. We probably just might spin it over there and then just individually if need be, but I don't anticipate that to be a problem for us. Beautiful morning out here in the Atlantic. I'm excited to see what this island looks like a little closer up, and this airport looks like a really interesting island and airport to fly into. Been looking a lot more lately into just some real interesting routes that I could find. I'm sure everyone occasionally, me included, likes, you know, your route between two major hubs or something along those lines. But especially in MSFS, given the terrain on a worldwide scale is much, much better than any simulator we ever had in the past. It's really nice to be able to fly to different places.
2,500.
There's 2,500. We're going to bring the speed back and take flaps 1. We'll bring that to the S speed for now. Runway's going to be straight ahead. Probably not going to see it quite yet, actually, with that bright sun. Now we'll actually bring the speed all the way back to 180 here. And I'm going to go take flaps 2 as well, since we are slow enough to do so. Gotta arm those speed brakes, not gonna need those. Alright, pretty quickly coming up here to our final approach fix. So we'll take 1 to 60 and gear down. Then we'll take flaps 3. And flaps 3 is green, so we'll go ahead and select manage speed and we'll take flaps full. And we'll get the airplane all configured. Got just about 2.5 miles to run to the final approach fix. So if we zoom in here, we do have that runway inside out there. Really cool location for this airport, right? Kind of on those cliffs sticking out into the ocean there. Cool, so we are slowed down and stabilized. Within 2 miles here, we're going to switch to the bird. I'm going to go ahead and set that flight path angle, and then we're going to take over pretty quickly. We'll assume we're cleared to landing. We'll get the nose lights on. Status is normal. Just 0.6 miles to go, 0.5, 0.4, and 0.3. And we'll go ahead and pull that did not work. Alright, well, we're going to go ahead and disconnect the autopilot. And we'll take it in manual. I don't know what happened there with selecting a flight path angle. It didn't quite want to do that for us. So we'll take it manual. Leave the auto throttle in at this point. Do have the runway inside at this point, so that's just fine. We'll go ahead and call the cabin. Landing status. Cam is no blue. So that completes our landing checklist. And we are good to go until we're a little bit low there. You can just see those pappies coming into view, so we're just going to pull that nose up and arrest that descent rate. Get those pappies back. Back on glide path, and looks like we still got 3 reds there. Wind's just about 10 knots, basically right off our nose. A little bit of left crosswind. There's that 2 reds, 2 whites we're looking for. We'll do our best to hold that. Quick view. Really cool.
1,000.
A little bit high, so we're going to increase that descent rate just a little bit. There's the 1,000 call out. There's back on that glide path. Make sure we don't go beneath it. Yeah, the wind's shifting a little bit here. And just a touch of left crosswind. Glide path.
100 above.
Right about here. There's 100 above minimums.
Minimum.
And continue.
$400.
Tiny bit low. Little wind there.
50. 40. 30, 20, retard, 5.
we're down a little bit of crossing correction there. We'll get that center line back. Throw into idle reverse. Auto brake is slowing us down nicely. And we can get rid of that reverse and we'll go manual braking. And we'll let it roll out all the way to the end. Just a little bit right of center line there. Need a little more aileron on that crosswind correction. But overall, pretty uneventful landing. Really cool looking airport. I'm just rolling out here. I'm going to restart GSX, get that up and running. Turn the airplane around here. As we do so, I'm going to go ahead and kick those spoilers out. Touch power here, get that nose swung around. Cool. All the lights will stay on for now since we're still on the runway, but we can get those flaps coming up. We got the APU going here for the power transfer after engine shut down. So we're going to take the airplane all the way down here to Delta. We'll pull off there and we'll get our gates. I believe any of the like whiskey 1 through 4 kind of gates should work for us. So we'll go ahead and get that loaded up with GSX. We'll take about whiskey 2. No follow me required. SATA, cool. Should we exit here at Echo? No reason to keep it on the runway all the way to Delta down there, so we'll exit here. As we pull off the runway, we're gonna stop that clock. We're gonna go ahead and get all of our lights off just because we're basically already on the ramp and we don't need them. Strobe, come back to auto. is Whiskey 2. Right, parking brake on. We'll shut off those engines. Seatbelts can come off. And beacon light can come off. The pumps off. And we'll take external power. And we can pull off the APU as well. Everything else is more or less set. We'll stop that clock. Block time of 5 hours 12 minutes, and air time 4 hours 54. We'll go ahead and have GS6 start the deboarding process, and we'll jump outside. Welcome to Ponta Delgada. Pretty cool flight. Really enjoy flying into some of these a little bit lesser known airports that I, in all my years past flight simulation, have never really flown into. Looks like a really beautiful place. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in. As always, feel free to leave questions, comments, feedback, and any suggestions as well. Like I said, I'm really interested in flying some lesser known routes in a lot of cases, as long as there's decent airport scenery available as well. So certainly open to suggestions. But once again, thank you very much for tuning in, and I will catch you guys in the next one.